Jovan, Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers fell 100 to 97 to drop to 32 and 21. They remain at number 5 in the Western Conference. They have won 12 of 16, but this makes now back-to-back brutal losses to two subpar, far below 500 teams for LA, and they actually dropped to 1-2 with Luka Doncic in the lineup. We have a lot to touch on today. It is the first night, or the front end rather, of a back-to-back. So I will be going a little bit shorter tonight, around an hour or so, because I have an early flight to Portland in the morning. But wanted to touch on this game, bigger picture stuff, and then get into the Q&A portion. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Shout out to the late night gang: Jackson, Zay, Kevin Cambridge, Diego, Spoolin99, Rolla, Not Around. Shout out to everybody in the chat: Drew, Ashwin, Alex, J-Note, Aaron. I think I hit just about everybody. Ruben, Craig. All right, let's get into it. So, overarching takeaway number one for me is, or overarching takeaway, not takeaway number one. I feel a little rusty right now. It's been almost a week since I've done a post-game reaction. This is going to be an adjustment process for the Lakers, and maybe it's going to take a little bit longer than anticipated, but I'm not going to overreact to them losing the Utah game. As I said at the time, it kind of felt like that game, or that day before winter break, spring break, whatever, where the kids in the classroom are kind of just checked out and counting down until they're going to have a bit of a break. The Lakers had that approach largely to that game. They're also without 3 of their top 8 rotation players. So that one I chalk up to partly the adjustment process, partly the context and circumstance of the game, but also missing a few key guys. And as we saw tonight, the Lakers lose Austin in the third quarter, and that was a huge blow. And Austin's their third best player. He's their third leading scorer, third and sometimes even second best playmaker, depending on the night and how things are going. So this is, we clearly saw the impact of losing Austin. I thought the offense took a big hit, and then having to rely more on Gabe or DFS or Vando. Yes, the defense obviously gets better, but I just think that there were some lineups there down the stretch where the Lakers didn't quite have enough offense or enough off the dribble shot creation aside from LeBron and Luka. So with these overarching takeaways, I like to kind of keep a bigger picture perspective, and I think the Lakers are going to be fine. It's been 3 games. However, there have been some concerning things, and I will be touching on those with my game-specific takeaways. But in general, I think we see that Luka's is clearly still getting back into game shape and getting his conditioning back to where it was before. He's still learning the offense and the defense. LeBron talked about it after the game that Luka still doesn't know all of the offensive, he doesn't know the full playbook yet. He doesn't know their defensive coverages yet. He's still learning what different signals and terminology are. So I think that's a process that's going to take 5 to 10 games or so to really get Luka fully acclimated. And I said that after the last Utah loss as well. I also think that the Lakers have played much differently on both sides of the ball. I'm going to touch on the 3-point shooting, but tonight they attempted a season high 51 3-pointers. In the previous Utah game, they attempted a season high, at the time, 50 3-pointers. And then in the first Luka game, they attempted 42 3-pointers, which was at the time, I believe, their fourth most, now tied for their sixth most. So with Luka in these 3 games, they've attempted 42 or more threes, and those have been top 6 outings for them in terms of 3-point volume, and there's been a clear 3-point uptick. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit more, but I think there's just an adjustment period on both sides of the ball. You take out 2 of your 4 best defenders in AD and Max, 2 starters, 2 key defenders. And I think when we look at this 12-4 stretch for the Lakers over the last 16 games, like, yes, some of that was post AD injury, post AD trade, but some of that was with AD. Some of that was a lot of that was with Max. So like there's certainly going to be a bit of an adjustment period, and I think the Lakers are still figuring out the optimal balance with lineups, the way, the optimal way to run the offense, the optimal way to run their defense. I think some of the switching has created opportunities for opposing offenses to target Austin, to target Luka, to put guys that aren't rim protectors in positions to try to protect the rim, or to create opportunities for teams to get offensive rebounds. So I think that there's still a lot that the Lakers have to figure out. And JJ said post game that he's looking forward to the challenge of dissecting all this and analyzing it and figuring out how to problem solve on both sides of the ball. And the Lakers don't have a lot of time to problem solve, because they have a really tough back-to-back. They're going to Portland right now, that they're en route, and they have a Portland, like, this was, because remember, this Charlotte game was a rescheduled game due to the LA wildfire postponements. So the Lakers and Hornets were the only 2 teams that played tonight. Now the Lakers are going straight to Portland and have a really difficult back-to-back there against a team that on paper is not very good, but has been playing well of late. And that's going to just be a really loud and raucous environment, and like that's going to be a tough place to play. So Lakers don't have a lot of time to try and turn this around and figure it out. And then they go to Denver on Saturday for an ESPN game, the marquee matchup of the weekend. So a couple of big games here for the Lakers, and a couple of big road tests for them. But overall, I don't want to overreact to this game. I don't want to make sweeping claims in either direction. I would be shocked if the Lakers look this bad offensively 2 to 4 weeks from now. I think like this is pretty much the low point. Some of the passing and the turnovers tonight was just abysmal. It almost felt like you could smell the alcohol seeping through from the players' sweat, and you saw several guys had nice tans, and it was just like, yeah, these guys were on vacation for a few days. They had to be called back in a little bit earlier than expected, and there was a lot of sloppiness on both sides of the ball. But big picture, I am not going to freak out or overreact to this. I would like to see a larger sample with Luka and just how this all looks. So keeping some perspective here for now. I know a lot of people are going to start sounding the alarms, and there's going to be a lot of overreactions on social media. You're not going to get that from me, at least not yet. I want to see more of a sample size. Stat of the night for me, there's several ways I could take this, but I'm just looking at that 97 point total for the Lakers. It was their 6th fewest points of the season. They didn't score 50 points in either half. And against a lowly Charlotte team that is 14-39 on the season, and a team that, like, they've got some solid perimeter defenders, but this isn't like a defensive juggernaut. Like, the Lakers were able to successfully target Mark Williams, who I will touch on a little bit later. Yusuf Nurkic is not a good rim protector. Like there was no reason why the Lakers shouldn't have had at least 115, 120 points tonight. So the fact that they only scored 97 points, again, tied for sixth fewest points on the season, only got to the free throw line 12 times, had 18 turnovers. Like the offense was, like JJ said it, he felt like they had 39 to 44 minutes of just subpar offense. And I would agree with that. And to me, that 97 point total, like you walk into, I've said it countless times on here, you walk into 100 plus, 105 plus points in 2024, 2025, like that's just how the modern game is, between offensive efficiency and some of the defensive stuff. And like offenses are typically ahead of defenses, and it's rare to see, like this game was a rock fight in the 80s for a lot of the fourth quarter. And it was a lot of sloppy basketball, a lot of unserious basketball, to be quite frank. Takeaway number one for me, and I mentioned it in the overarching takeaway, is the Lakers are going through a metamorphosis offensively. And I look at the 3-point volume and the 3-point uptick as the biggest thing that is changing. And with the way that teams are selling out against LeBron and Luka, they are almost daring the Lakers to take more threes and kind of goading them into taking more threes. And look, they played 2 games, or they played against 2 teams, 3 games overall. So I want to see what this looks like against Portland and Denver, and next week they play Dallas, and like they're going to play some better teams, some tougher defenses, and we'll see how the offense continues to form. But as I said, they just had back-to-back games attempting their most threes in a game this season. The first time they hit the 50 3-point attempt mark, and before that, the first game, 42 attempts. So the Lakers, with the way that Luka plays and the way that Luka operates offensively, he draws 2 to the ball a lot. And I think the Lakers' ball movement and shot quality for the most part through these first 3 games has been good. But there's also been a lot of overpassing, or occasionally, like it feels like they haven't found the right rhythm and flow, where sometimes it's overpassing and guys are passing up good shots to try and find a great shot, or good shots into late shot clock possessions, or guys are sometimes guys take the opposite approach. So they're like, hey, I want to try to assert myself, so we don't overpass, we don't drain the shot clock, and then guys are rushing, or russing, if you want to use that verb. They are rushing and taking bad shots, and I think that there's just kind of been a combination of both. And JJ talked about that after the game, of feeling like the shot quality is getting better. And remember, like JJ wanted at the beginning of the season, he wanted this group to be a 40 plus team in terms of 3-point attempts. And they're becoming that now with Luka, and it feels like they are becoming more of what JJ wanted them to be at the beginning of the season. Like he has a roster that fits the type of basketball that he believes in and that he wants to play. But the other thing that I mentioned a little bit ago was like 12 free throws tonight was one of their lowest outputs of the season. And I think they really missed Austin once he went out in the third quarter. He got ejected the first time in his career that he was ejected, got back-to-back technicals, has 6 technicals this season after having just 3 over the course of his first 3 seasons, had 1 in each season. Then this season is up to 6. But they really missed Austin and his downhill ability and the ability to draw contact and get to the free throw line. He did not get to the free throw line tonight in 27 minutes. But then just looking at it, Rui goes 2 for 4. He misses the 2 huge free throws. And I know Rui has gotten a lot of flack online for that. Also had a botched possession with LeBron, the penultimate possession where LeBron hits the 3 to give the Lakers a shot to tie it once they foul. Rui, I'm not quite sure what he was supposed to do on that possession, but it led to LeBron ends up making the three, but then he chewed into Rui going into the timeout, and the two were having an animated discussion near the Lakers bench about what Rui was supposed to be doing on that possession. So he misses the 2 free throws. He has that situation where he kind of does the wrong thing. Again, I'm not quite sure what he was supposed to be doing there. I have yet to rewatch the game. So 2 for 4 for Rui, 2 for 2 for LeBron, 3 for 4 for Luka, and 1 for 2 for Vando. So like that's just not a lot of, especially looking at LeBron and Luka combining for 6 free throw attempts. You'd like to see that be at least double digits, if not close to like 15, 16 attempts but between those two. So 12 free throw attempts, I think is a bit emblematic of the way that the Lakers have been playing offensively. And even the 51 3-point attempts, while I am typically pro shooting threes within reason, anytime your 3-point shot attempts, your 3-point volume is over half of your total points scored, that is troublesome. If you're taking 51 threes, you should be scoring 120, 125 points ideally. But for the Lakers to take 51 threes and score 97 points, that's concerning. That is troubling. So tonight, like Luka, let's just get into Luka briefly. Like Luka had 14 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 fouls, almost fouled out. Had the one possession against Mark Williams where I think he fouled him, but they let him get away with it. But 6 turnovers. Really should have had 7. There was 1 turnover early. He had 3 turnovers in the first 90 seconds, and one of them they attributed to a missed field goal, but it was clearly just a bad pass and a turnover. 5 for 18 shooting. So Luka, I mean, this was arguably, I would say, like in some ways his most complete game from the 11 rebounds and 8 assists perspective, but also probably his worst game from both being targeted defensively by Hornets scorers and ball handlers, but also the 5 of 18 shooting, 1 for 9 on threes, and 6 turnovers. So Luka is still, I mean, he looked like a guy who was just coming off of nearly a week break, and it being the first game back post All-Star break. So we'll see how he looks against Portland. We're not even sure if he's going to play against Portland. We're not sure if LeBron's going to play. LeBron said post-game that this foot injury is going to be something he manages the rest of the way. So that's another subplot to all this. But the offense is clearly changing. The Lakers are becoming a more modern team. But I think the one thing they have to be careful with is, like tonight, 40 points in the paint, 12 free throw attempts, 51 3-point attempts. Those are troubling. Like 51, I think, is a little bit too high. I think 40 to 45 is probably more appropriate. And again, should be free throws should for the Lakers, especially with the way that they play, that should always be 20 plus, and points in the paint should always be about like 50 plus. So I think in those 3 numbers, those 3 statistical markers were all a bit concerning for LA. And they're all, I think, emblematic of this change that they're going through offensively. And I think that they have to find a way to modernize the offense and adjust to Luka and his strengths and his style, while also keeping what makes them so efficient and effective offensively, which is partly the downhill ability, the putting pressure on the paint, the putting pressure on the rim, scoring in the paint, and also generating free throw opportunities, because that's been a core thing, a core tenet for this group for the last couple of years. Takeaway number 2 for me is the Lakers' crunch time defense, and really their defense in big moments, was troublesome tonight, and that's the thing I'm most concerned with overall. And this is something that I talked about for those who watched the last episode of Buha's Block. I talked about Lakers going small and some of the challenges with that. So tonight, Jackson Hayes plays 18 minutes. Lakers are plus 12 in his 18 minutes. Alex Len plays 10 minutes. The Lakers are plus 8 in his 10 minutes. Basically has a Tony Snell, one rebound, one foul in 10 minutes. I think Alex Len was arguably worse than the Utah game, despite was not involved offensively. But you saw there were several times where Luka, LeBron, or other guys saw Alex Len as like the dump off option and purposely did not pass him the ball. And there was a couple times that they pitched it to him, and he did the Draymond, Vando, quick, like, let me find someone for a dribble handoff. But Alex Len is just really mucking up the Lakers spacing right now. He's a non-factor offensively. I don't think he's been that good defensively. And again, tonight he played 10 minutes and had 1 rebound. So I don't see the point in playing him at this point. I think he's been, to be arguably the worst player the Lakers have played this season, just period. And I would play Christian Coloco or Trey Jemison moving forward. I really don't understand trying to make Alex Len happen, because I've not really seen any glimpse of anything through these first 32 minutes with him. I think it's been pretty rough, and he looks like a guy who might not be on a team as soon as next season. So I would say really discouraging first 32 minutes for Alex Len. But even with that, the Lakers were +8 because they went on that run. He was out there for a couple of the runs, especially that one in the fourth to kind of go on that rally. And so the Lakers, between Len and Hayes, those two played 28 minutes, and the Lakers are +20 in those 28 minutes, which means, by some quick math here, in the 20 minutes that they went small, the Lakers were outscored by 23 points. And part of that was a bit fluky. The Hornets went on like a 14-0 run where the Lakers were struggling offensively, which actually has been a strength. The small ball units have typically done well offensively, not well defensively. So they are struggling offensively. Charlotte's hitting everything. They go on a 14-0 run. That's going to swing the plus minus dramatically against those smaller lineups. But even then, they still were a -9 in like the other portion of going small. So the small ball lineups did not work tonight. They got crushed. And looking at the plus minus, like Vando, Lakers were outscored by 17 points in his 12 minutes, or just under 13. And Dalton, Lakers were outscored by 16 points in his 13 minutes. So you saw like those lineups, I think, both struggled to score and struggled to defend. And this is also where I get back to another thing I mentioned on Buha's block of, I think the Lakers lineups and rotation are all out of sorts right now. I think they are putting too much offense in the starting lineup, too much defense in the bench lineup. And the way that JJ sprinkles in the bench, I think those middle portions of the game are just all out of sorts right now in terms of either too many guys who are defensive liabilities together or too many guys who are offensive liabilities. Like the second Alex Len and Jared Vanderbilt were out there together, you saw they put Yusuf Nurkic on Jared Vanderbilt. He just stood 1 foot in the paint, 1 foot out. And then I forgot who was guarding Len. It might have been Salon, I think. But it was just like immediately they stopped paying attention to Len and Vando, and it was like, okay, let's go double LeBron, let's go double Luka, and we're not afraid of like Vando taking an open three or a dump off pass to Alex Len. Like we think we'll be able to recover, and the Lakers did not want to give Alex Len those dump off passes. So I think the Lakers have, and my point with this was supposed to be a defensive thing, and it's kind of turned into an offensive thing. But late in this game, the Lakers really struggled to get stops, and it felt like, so Charlotte goes on that run late or in the third to take control of the game. They have the lead going into the fourth. Then they go on that LaMelo hits a couple threes. I think it was LaMelo, or it might have been Nick Smith Jr. hit one. But they stretched the lead to, I want to say it might have been 9. And then the Lakers go on a run to eventually tie the game, take back the lead. They're up by a little bit. And then they keep kind of shifting between Jackson and a little bit of a bigger lineup because there's no Austin, or going smaller. And it didn't really matter which way they approached it. They just couldn't get stops. And there wasn't even Austin to mismatch hunt, which Charlotte was doing in the first quarter. They were targeting Austin and Luka. And I thought Austin actually like held up decently in his on-ball defense with LaMelo. I thought it was largely solid. But when they were able to target him, and especially like Miles Bridges has been a matchup nightmare for the Lakers this season across those 2 games. Like his numbers don't really reflect it, but he's just been able to get downhill and kind of do what he's wanted against them. And I think that's created a lot of like driving kick or hockey assist type possessions. But like the Lakers just could not keep guys in front of them at the point of attack, and they couldn't get defensive rebounds. And Charlotte was just one step ahead of them. And certainly Charlotte hit some tough shots. And there was an element of like their shot making was impressive down the stretch. They hit, it felt like every big shot that they needed to, but it also felt like the Lakers were not being resistant at all. And I think that's my biggest concern with this group moving forward is I just like, I don't think that they quite knew which lineup to go with. Should we go big? Should we go small? And that's something that JJ is going to have to figure out. It's probably going to be a matchup thing. But I also just felt like when Charlotte wanted to target, I mean, they targeted Luka a lot, but when they wanted to get downhill and again, kind of get the Lakers in rotation or just target someone in the pick and roll and dance with them and try to create a three against them. Like they basically did whatever they wanted. And they didn't even like, they only had 24 paint points. So it's not like they lived in the paint, but it felt like, especially late, their paint points were important and they just made every big play offensively. So I think for the Lakers, they're going to have to figure out the defensive end. And I think tonight was no Austin. So you had a defender that teams couldn't necessarily try to target the way that we've seen teams target him before. But having Luka and Rui and even Jackson, like LaMelo had the one play where he gets downhill. Jackson jumps for like LaMelo was not even. I thought it was clear he was not shooting. Jackson jumps. LaMelo just throws the underhand pass, kind of scoop pass to Mark Williams, who gets the finish to tie the game. I think it was at 90-90. So like, I mean, you're not really getting that rip. Like, I thought Jackson had kind of regressed tonight in terms of his performance overall and also his rim protection. And I think the defensive end is that's the concerning side for me. And if you want to point to something to be worried about longer term, I think some of this stuff can be better with certain lineups and certain scheme things. But I also think there's some limitations here that ultimately might just be why whenever, if the Lakers don't win the championship for whatever reason, I think it's likely going to be because of the defensive end. That's currently where I'm at with them. And then third and final takeaway before we get into the Q&A, I did want to touch on the center position quickly. So Jackson, I thought didn't have, like, he got a couple of easy buckets late, but for the most part, like, didn't have much of an impact on the game. I was kind of surprised, like 18 minutes for Jackson, 10 for Alex Len. I'd rather see Jackson play 22, 24, 28 minutes. Not quite sure why that split was so close. Again, I don't think Jackson played well, but I think he clearly played better than Alex Len. So I'm not quite sure what was going on with that. Again, I think Alex Len should not be playing moving forward. I think that's bleeding points and just like not an NBA level player right now. Then as I mentioned, the Lakers really struggled in the small ball minutes. And then the flip side though was we got a glimpse of Mark Williams post rescindment and 10 points, 9 rebounds, no blocks. LA really targeted him down the stretch. And I think if you're the Lakers, you have to feel better about this whole situation. I do think Mark Williams is a better player than Jackson Hayes. And I think he could help the Lakers with some of the things that they are deficient in terms of defensive rebounding and just having kind of doing what they want Alex Len to do, but just being better at those things. But as we saw, the Lakers really targeted him with pick and rolls, having his guy, whether it was Jackson or Rui, come up and screen for LeBron or Luka and generating advantages that way. And the Lakers just, they took him off the dribble. He ended up with 3 fouls, but I think he had a couple in the fourth quarter. So all things considered, I would say Mark Williams has been playing better. So I don't want to deny that. Right. And I was for the trade. So I'm not going to change that take, but I think as like the trade fell through, they rescinded it. And as we look at some of his deficiencies, especially in terms of switching and being a mobile big on the perimeter and corralling and containing ball handlers, that was an area he really struggled in tonight. We saw again that the Lakers really targeted. LeBron obviously had the big dunk on him, one of his best dunks of the season. I think clearly the top 2 or 3. He also said post-game that it wasn't weird to play Mark Williams because he was never a teammate. He was never in their locker room. So I thought that was interesting from LeBron. But yeah, I mean, I think Mark Williams is better than Jackson Hayes. I think he would have helped the Lakers. I think he's better than Dalton Connect. However, is he Dalton plus a pick plus a swap better than Jackson? I don't think so. So I think that the Lakers, in a way, things might have worked out in their favor, all things considered. And they still have the picks and the assets to go after another center this summer. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. So we got some super chats. First one from Aaron Belton. Kyrie or KD gonna be a Laker this summer? It's not a question, that is a statement, but I appreciate the super chat. Between the two, I think, well, I would say in a vacuum, I'd probably say Kyrie's more realistic, but I don't see Dallas sending another star to the Lakers. So I guess technically KD, but I don't think the Lakers have. I'd be surprised if the Lakers get another star with their current assets, but again, didn't see Luka coming, so maybe it happens. Jackson, thank you for the super chat. Vit Krejci to us in the offseason, solid point forward. I like him. I don't know what his contract situation is. Let me see. He is okay. So he's got 3 more years. He's making 2.1 this year, 2.3 next year, 2.7 the following year, 3 million team option for 2027-28. So you could get there with a minimum guy in it. Like that's where you could give like Shake in a second for him. And you could even do like a heavily protected second or something, or some type of asset. You could set like $1 million, whatever. That's where I think keeping Shake in his non-guaranteed contract could be valuable compared to cutting him and keeping Cam, for example. So yeah, I mean, I like him. I don't know. With that salary, it is a realistic, reasonable player for them to get, but I don't think he's like, I don't know, like on this team, for example, I think he'd be the 9th best guy at best, and it's probably a conversation between him and Dalton, and maybe more of a matchup based thing. So I don't think he'd be in the top 8 on this current roster. Homie_33, yo, saw you at the game. You're next to Dan. I wonder what's on the monitor in front of you guys. The execution is sloppy, and what's tough with what's with tough Gabe threes. Well, next time you see me, say like I've had people yell at me from the crowd, so would love to at least wave or say what's up. Yes, I do sit next to Dan Wojcicki. The monitor in front of us is the box score of the game. So we have the 4 beat writers. It's Dan Wojcicki of the LA Times, myself, Kobe Price of the Southern California News Group, and then Dave McMenamin of ESPN. And then there's a couple monitors there that just have the box score in black and white. Nothing crazy on it. But then we do obviously have our computers, and that's, for me, I like to pull up my own box score and look at it that way, and then also go on X or send emails, do other work. So that's what I'm doing on my computer. Execution was very sloppy. Tough Gabe threes. Like I will say, I thought Gabe was fine tonight. What did he finish? 2 for 6 on threes. He did hit a couple early, and I thought he's been in a pretty good rhythm now for going on a couple months. So I don't I think there was a couple that you probably want back, but that's also kind of Gabe. Like that's part of what made him who he was in Miami. I think that that's just kind of part of his game. Is I don't think he's only like an open. Like I think it's you want to find the balance between him being aggressive and him being passive. I'm more okay with him being aggressive if it leads to him like not passing up open shots the way that he was at times earlier this season, or even going back to last season during his brief stint at the end of the season. But I'm with you, and like I hear you, and I agree that there's probably a couple that he could have turned down or swung the ball. But it also it feels like a guy who sometimes gets some grenades like late in the shot clock, where maybe it's not literally a grenade with like 3 seconds left, but even once you're in like that 7-8 second range, you have to consider getting the ball up, and you don't want to just fling it up, but like that becomes a factor if you're constantly monitoring the shot clock. So I feel like he sometimes gets some of those possessions, but in general, yeah, I think tonight that there's probably a couple that he'd take back if he could. Jonathan Lewis, thank you for the super chat. You have my dream job. Tips to getting there. I graduate this spring with a comm degree, have helped my school's athletic department, and interned with a small website. Well, thank you. I'm very blessed to have the job that I have, and I also worked very hard. So there's an element of luck and fortune, and also like I sacrificed a lot in college in terms of social life and even my grades. Honestly, like I prioritized work and interning above everything. So I would say it's a combination of that, and everyone's path is different. So I also don't want to tell you to follow my path. I would say get as much experience as possible, try as many things as possible. I'm overdue for like a how I got my job type video. If you guys would like that, let me know in the chat. Also, maybe like a more personal kind of Q&A or something like that for anyone who has other questions about me or just getting to kind of know me more. But I would say, again, biggest thing would be like do as many things as possible. So start like if you have a smartphone and you have internet, start a podcast. Start posting videos to YouTube. Like, and you can, if you're interested in play-by-play or color commentating, then watch games on YouTube, turn off the sound, and then you do your own calls for them. Help out with, if your school has a TV station, a radio station, newspaper, offer or join one of those things. So I mean, it sounds like you are on your way. You're going to be graduating with a comm degree. You've worked with the athletic department. You've interned at a website, so you already have some experience. I would just say do as many things as you can. For me, a big thing was I wanted to be in an NBA city. So growing up in LA, it was kind of easy to just say, try to stay at LA, and I was fortunate and able to do that by going to USC. But all the schools I was looking at were all in NBA cities for the most part, outside of Syracuse. So that's another thing for me is like I knew I only wanted to work in the NBA because I would say I'm not even really a sports fan. I'm an NBA fan. I'm not even really like I am a basketball fan in purist at heart, but like I love the NBA far more than I love college basketball, high school basketball, WNBA, like whatever other form of basketball you want to pick. Like NBA for me is like far and away, like international basketball, even the Olympics, like NBA for me is like the pinnacle. That is the thing I love and I'm obsessed with. And I was like, I need to work in this. So I decided I was only going to go to a college in an NBA city where I could try to find a way to get into that arena and cover that team. So fortunately, being in LA, I was able to cover both the Lakers and the Clippers and find my way in situations where I was able to go to games. And really since my sophomore year of college, I had a season credential. Like I've had a season credential since 2011 to at least one of the two teams, if not both. So a lot of things worked in my favor. Some of it was timing. Some of it was me being really aggressive with emailing people, asking them to coffee, but also being mindful. Because I would say, like sometimes people hit me up and most of it's positive, but sometimes it's like, I think you got to look at it from the perspective too of like, if you're hitting someone up and asking them for a favor or suggesting something, like you should be trying to work around their schedule and trying to make it as seamless and as positive of a experience for them as possible. And that's what I always tried to do whenever I reached out to people. And a lot of people were very receptive and had coffee with me or a phone call with me. And like, that really helped in terms of mentorship and just giving me advice. But I was very deliberate with how I approached it and very much just like everything's on your terms. And like, what's a coffee shop near where you live? What's a time that is, you know, with your schedule? So I think that's a little thing that I've noticed a lot of people don't do is they kind of just assume that, and it's not really like it's tricky because everyone's equal, right? But if you're asking someone for a favor, I think you need to be willing to kind of work around them rather than make them work around you or just assume that, you know, that's how it's going to go. So that's another piece of advice. But I would just say, really, to me, it's just reps, experience. Try to get to covering something consistently. And once you get your portfolio going, that opens up more doors for you. Samir Dude, thank you for the super chat. Hey, Jovan, what is your assessment of Luka? Do you think he's hesitant to get more involved, or does the coaching staff need to involve him more? I think Luka is going to be fine. I don't want to, like, this is a guy who's, I've talked about his accolades. I've talked about his accomplishments. I've talked about his trajectory. So I feel like I'm just repeating myself here, but to like, this is a guy who's been on a trajectory that is frankly unprecedented. And really the list of guys who have had a start to the career like Luka it's all like top 10, top 15 players. Like he's like, again, the first team All NBA 5 times is Steph has not done that. Like that just showed Kawhi has not done that. I've said this before, but like he's just had a certain level of success and consistency that is rare for a player of his age, of his stature, etc. So I think he's going to be fine. I think clearly there's an element of conditioning, game shape. His legs aren't quite there. His shot hasn't quite been there. He's also trying to fit in, and he hasn't quite figured out the flow and the rhythm and just there's a little bit of, I think, still feeling it out. So he's a supercomputer, as JJ has said. I don't think this is going to be a long-term thing. I don't think we're going to be talking about this in, as I said earlier, like 2 to 4 weeks. I think by this point in mid-March, I'd be shocked if the Lakers offense resembles what it's resembled the last 3 games, and if Luka's struggling the way that he is. Now, if he is, it's time for a different conversation, at least on like this year and the ceiling of this group. But even if he does, for whatever reason, struggle, like long-term, you still take Luka 10 out of 10 times. And I'm not, again, other people may overreact. They may, I'm sure there's going to be some hot takes of, are the Lakers going to regret the trade, or did they lose the trade, or no. Like, just patience. It's been 3 games. Let's give it some time. Was at the game tonight. Braun dunk, probably craziest thing I've seen in person. Also great meeting you at the meetup. God bless you and your fam. What's up, man? It was great to meet you, and I know you want to be doing this one day. And email and DMs always open to you. It was great to meet up with you, and appreciate your support and the kind words that you had, especially at the end. You're the last one. You closed it out, so I appreciate you. But yeah, I mean that Braun dunk was insane. I think the Brawny reaction said it all. Next time, let me know if you're at the game, and I'll say what's up. And it was great meeting you. And again, let me know if I could be of any help. Gonna go about 10 to 15 more minutes here. there another one? Did I miss one? Oh, okay. Let's see. It looks like I missed one. It's not showing up. This is from Chris Benk. He says, I don't disagree that defense was and will continue to be rough, but only gave up 100. Luka not scoring, team shooting bricks, and the awful turnovers felt like the core of the loss. Thankfully, these should all improve a ton. Well, thank you for the super chat, Chris. I'm not sure why it's not letting me pull it up. Let's see if I could. Okay, here we go. I went back in the chat. Got it here. So I think we're in agreement here. Like for me, the inability to get timely stops and critical stops in crunch time was concerning, and it at least for me and my priors and like I said, I've been saying now, I think my two biggest concerns with this group as constructed are rim protection, which I felt was like Charlotte is a jump shot heavy team. So I don't think this is the best representation of the Lakers' lack of rim protection, but it felt like once they got into the paint and got to the rim, they were able to score and got high percentage looks. Again, this is not look like Charlotte does not have let's say the highest basketball IQ. I think some of the turnovers and decisions tonight were very unserious basketball team. They're like the worst version of the Lakers is Charlotte basically on every night of just like unserious turnovers and decisions and shots and all that stuff. So Charlotte's not the best representation of what I think the Lakers' biggest flaws are, but to me, it's rim protection and defensive rebounding. The defensive rebounding has been better lately, but I think big teams, like I think the Denver matchup in particular, Jokic, Gordon, and MPJ, and even Christian Brown, like that's going to be tough, I think, for LA to keep that big of a front court off the glass. And I'm going to be interested to see how they handle that. So for me, I was talking and looking big picture, and that's kind of what I tried to do in general. I try not to get caught up in the nightly ebbs and flows because some nights you're gonna have off shooting nights, and Lakers shot 41% tonight. Clearly not their best shooting performance. 29% on threes. Clearly not their best shooting performance. I'm sure some of that had to do with rust and being off for a week, and guys, as I joked earlier, going on vacation, drinking a ton, not necessarily resting the way that they probably should have been. To your point, though, they only gave up 100. That is you take that 10 out of 10 times. Luka's offensive output, the team's shooting struggles, and the turnovers were the core of this loss. I attribute all of that to both the adjustment process and, again, some rust and unseriousness, again, coming out of the All-Star break, but I think all that will be better. The defense, though, like this group's ability to get stops in crunch time, I am still a bit concerned with, and nothing I saw tonight changed that. So now the offense might just be at such a level that it doesn't matter. They can offset it, but I do have concerns about this group getting defensive stops. Jay Note says I should have been at that meetup, man. There will be more, and I know it was kind of last minute. I basically decided it on Friday, and I picked a place close to me. I think next time I do LA meetup, I will probably do a poll with like 4 different options that are kind of spread out, and then just see what makes the most sense for the most amount of people. Rob Earth, hi Jovan, who teaches Dalton and Rui how to play defense. Why are they not hiring Ron Artest? Ron, to my knowledge, doesn't really have a relationship with JJ. So typically, if you're going to hire like a player development type, of course he's got ties to the organization and he'll sometimes be at games, but I don't think there's a tie there with JJ. So I think that would probably be the reason why he wouldn't be hired. Typically there needs to be a relationship and rapport there. I mean, the player development coaches and assistants, each one has an assignment or multiple assignments in terms of players. I think with Dalton and Rui, there are two significant issues, and both actually kind of remind me of each other because both guys offensively have a certain level of athleticism and almost like simplicity, but like in a good way. In terms of Dalton, a lot of times it's like how can I create my own shot? And it's either on the ball or off the ball. Like on the ball tonight, we saw he ran a couple ball screens and took some off the dribble threes, pull up threes. But off the ball, it's reading the defense, going around screens, trying to create separation. For Rui, a similar thing of on the ball, it's attacking closeouts. It is the pull-up jumpers, which he hit a couple tonight. It's trying to get to the rim. And then off the ball, it's either spotting up or it's those baseline cuts or slot cuts that he's become really, really good at. I think that's arguably, I would say, like the best and most reliable part of his game outside of typically he shoots well. He didn't shoot well tonight, just 1 for 8 on threes. But they both play with a certain level of like verve and athleticism and energy offensively, but that doesn't really translate defensively for either one of them. And to go to the two things I think ultimately hurt them is processing. I think both process slowly on the defensive end and don't read the game well on that end in terms of their decision making and the right times to rotate and how to navigate screens and like stuff like that. Also walling off ball handlers and whatnot. But the other thing is I think, and partly goes with that, is their hip mobility. I think both guys have tight hips and both guys struggle laterally to keep guys in front of them. And I think Rui's gotten better at it, but I think this goes back to my rate I've done like 7 times now about why DFS I think should start over Rui. And ultimately it just comes to like, I think he's a better wing stopper than Rui. And I think that group really needs that. And Rui has actually been done really well in the small ball groups and has been a big part of like guarding centers and guarding 4s and 5s, because I think that's in Rui's wheelhouse defensively. And I actually think when he could use his strength and basically have like, rotating in short distances as the low man or as the rim protector and just battling guys and boxing out, he's been doing better with the rebounding. The rebounding has certainly been better with Rui lately. I think that's more in his wheelhouse and capabilities. I think when you ask him to get on the perimeter and try to keep guys in front of him and navigate screens and dictate angles and stuff, I just don't think he has the lateral quickness and hip flexibility. And I think it's the same thing with Dalton. So I think to be honest, I think both guys are just relatively limited defensively. I think Rui's the better defender. I think Rui has higher upside on that end, especially because he's a bit bigger, he's stronger. But I don't think at this point, from what we've seen from Dalton, it looks like he's ever going to be even like an average defender. And with Rui, I think depending on the night, depending on the matchup, he can be like an average to even above average defender. But I think in general, he trends toward being a below average to average. I think off the ball, he's below average in my opinion. I think he loses his man a lot, especially off screens and like multiple passes. See, you got another super chat. This one from the Snow. What's up? Jovan, it was super cool hanging out with you and your fam for the game. Thank you for being you and creating such a chill and welcoming environment for your viewers. It means a lot. I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming out as well. And I'm glad you had a good time. And yeah, it was, again, it was fun. It was really cool to meet some of the late night gig. And I look forward to meeting hopefully many more of you in the future, both in LA and other cities, other states, other countries, all that stuff. So that is what I'm going for, trying to create a chill and welcoming environment. Like I think that kind of sums me up in 2 words: is chill and welcoming. And that's I hope you guys see that, and I hope you guys feel that, and that's exactly what I'm going for. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate the super chat. Logan Walter says, so what I'm hearing is Rui should be traded for a center in the offseason. Tentatively, maybe. I think it depends. Like, I don't believe in hard and fast, like this has to happen necessarily. I think depending on the center, potentially. I do think like longer, like I also would like to see Rui in a bench role. And I think I would just like to see it and at least kind of know how that would impact the rotation and the lineups and stuff. Because again, I think right now the starting group just doesn't have enough defense. The bench doesn't have enough offense. And I think it's creating some imbalanced lineups right now in the middle portions of the game. So but tentatively, I would be open to it. He's an expiring contract. This would be assuming like Vando stays healthy and you're fairly confident he can at least be healthy going into next season. And also depending on what happens with DFS, because he's got a player option, you could extend him. He could opt out and you re-sign him. So assuming Vando stays reasonably healthy and DFS, that situation gets worked out and he's a Laker longer term, I would be open to this. If there's a lot of uncertainty there, I'm not as certain on it. Big Baby Sports says, I'd like those backstage vlogs. I will be doing more vlogs. I'm actually going to be doing tomorrow. One of the cool things about going to Portland is there's the Nike employee store, and the Lakers are kind enough to hook us up with a pass, and everything is severely like 30 to 50% discounted. So I'm bringing my suitcase like half full to go splurge at the Nike employee store. I will probably, I'm a Air Force Ones guy, so I'll probably load up on at least I think the Air Force Ones are and like $50, which is an incredible deal now they're like 110, 115. So might get a couple of those for the price of less than one full price Air Force One. And I'm probably going to document that all and show you guys, take you guys behind the scenes of going to the Nike employee store. Aaron Belton, what centers are out there that's actually a needle mover? I think Nick Claxton is one name that comes to mind. I think Jalen Duren, if the Lakers could get him, depending on what happens with Detroit. Otherwise, it's kind of slim. Brook Lopez is going to be a free agent, but the Lakers probably won't have more than the taxpayer MLE, which is going to be about $5.7 million. Yeah, there's not... The center market's not great right now, to be honest. Joe, Mark Williams comes to mind. Hey, if the price lowers, there's always the right price for anybody. And if it's like Dalton and something that's not an unprotected first, I would consider it. Joe Morales is breaking my heart with his Drake comment that I will not highlight any further. Dominic says, not going to overreact. We look a bit lost at the moment. Exactly. That's again, give it some time. And they'll probably look, I wouldn't be surprised if they lose to Portland. And then I wouldn't be surprised if they lose I would not be surprised if they lose the next couple games. I think a split is a win. 2-0 is a huge win, but again, give it some time. Glenn S says, just give Koloko minutes at this point, Lakers. Yeah, he's just straight up better than Alex Len. Logan says Duren would be ideal, but Detroit didn't want to give him up. They did not, and the Lakers inquired about it. However, you never know if things change in the summer. Tamika, how did we let the Mavs get Max a two-way wing? It like hindsight's always 2020, although I've always been pro Max, so you guys know that, those who've been following me for a while. I think I would, like, kind of knowing how this all played out, I would have rather put Dalton and the second first in to keep Max, to be completely honest, because Max with this group, that's the exact type of player the Lakers need. And he's been playing at an even higher level with Dallas. Mint Millions, you like Lakers to win tomorrow? It's tough. Like, it's a tough back-to-back. Portland's won. I want to pull up Portland's schedule. They've won. I think they'd won 9 of 10, and then I think they played a couple games since then. So I don't know exactly. So they've actually lost 3 straight, but before that, they had won they'd won 10 of 11 before that. So they've won 10 of 14 overall. And the 3 that they just lost were at Minnesota and at Denver twice. So those are 3 tough games. The Lakers could certainly win tomorrow. I just think based on how they've been playing, I think this is going to be a step up in competition compared to Charlotte and Utah. And they're on the road back to back coming out of the All-Star break. I like, if I had to lean one way, I would probably lean toward Portland winning, but it would show us something if the Lakers went out and won tomorrow night, or technically tonight, and overcame those odds of like back-to-back road coming out of the All-Star break, etc. Kurt, a fair Jovan, do you think LeBron will make the offer again to take less to get a center? I think it depends on the player. I don't know if it's going to be a center necessarily, but I'm sure there will be a short list of players he will consider taking a pay cut for. Otherwise, I think he's going to take the maximum that they will pay him. Justin Hartford, tomorrow's going to be the Luka breakout game. I'm driving down from Seattle for the game, so he has to, LOL. Well, there you go. You heard it from Justin here first that it is going to be the Luka breakout. He's going to go 30-point triple-double. L.A. Jovan, why do you think the team comes out flat so often after halftime? It's a good question. The third quarters, there's just kind of been something with this group for years, honestly. That they've had some rough third quarter performances. I don't know. I like, what are they doing at halftime? It does, like, I guess one thing for me that has been an issue with this group for, I would say, like during the Darvin era, and then certainly at points this season, has just been like sometimes they do get punched in the mouth and they kind of fold, and sometimes they also just don't play with a certain level of energy or motor. And I think that's more of a roster thing than anything. But I think like sometimes that stuff kind of like it feels like it compounds quickly against the Lakers, where like they come out with low energy. And that's kind of just been an issue for them for a while. And then they get punched in the mouth. A team goes on a run, and then they kind of fold. But I will give them credit. Like, they did not fold tonight. They made their comeback in the fourth. They took back control of the game. And then ultimately they couldn't get stops. They couldn't just execute on both sides of the ball. They couldn't score and get stops in a manner to win the game. So, but yeah. Kane Carter, always with the great personal questions. Jovan, I remember you said in high school you were an enforcer and got ejected a lot. Describe that in more detail. Things you would do, type of fouls, type brawls, and whatnot. Okay. I'll give you like a 30-second. So one time, I mean, certainly like several ejections, and it was just like I was a hothead where it's like it was almost like an alter ego for me. Maybe it was the Serbian side, but my mom would also say it's the Puerto Rican side. So maybe it's the Serbian and Puerto Rican combination led to me having a very short fuse on the basketball court. But it would be like little stuff of I was constantly elbowing people. I was dirty. I wasn't trying to like injure people, but I would say I was on that line of hard fouls. Like if you're coming out, like one thing I've been very proud of in my basketball career, I've never been dunked on once. And it's because if you even attempt to dunk on me, I will take you out and I will hit your legs. So I've thankfully, and even when we played like we played Anthony Brown one year in the playoffs. So like even when we played future NBA players or like more athletic, bigger players, like I took pride in. I was never going to let someone dunk on me. I was going to foul them. So in general, I think like I started some of it, and sometimes it was like if someone hit me or said something that just triggered me, all of a sudden, like next play, I'm giving them a little shove or an elbow. And like, I think that's how a lot of these things would escalate. But I remember my junior year, it was actually late in a game and someone fouled me hard. And it was like an intentional foul situation. And they just like, I forgot what exactly they said, but they said something that just like upset me. And then I pushed them into their own bench, and then I got tossed for that one. So that's probably the one that most encompasses what you're saying. But I think a lot of times my coach used me as like guard the best player and just do little things to kind of get in their head. And so I was sometimes like I was typically a center or a big man, but sometimes I'd even be put on wings, and it was just like do what you can, like foul, like you have your 5 fouls because in high school you have 5 fouls. Do your 5 fouls and just annoy them, grab their jersey, elbow them, and if they get by you, give them a little shove, like that type of stuff. So I was constantly trying to play mind games and be physical like that. So technicals, ejections, fouling out, like that was all in my wheelhouse. So I like that type of stuff, honestly. Jeffrey Ellis, did you see Luka grimace and limp after a layup? I did not. So I did not. But I guess I will on the rewatch. L.A. Jovan, did you ever play Modern Day or Loyola when you were in high school? We played Loyola when I think I was a sophomore. Varsity played Loyola. I wasn't on the team, but I went to the game to support. It was a playoff game. We never played Modern Day. Ryan Gaffari, Jovan Stewart. Yes, the funny thing is though, I'm not jacked like Isaiah Stewart. So like really like the funniest part of all is like sometimes I'd pick fights with people who could probably like kick my ass, but I just kind of didn't care. I was just like, this is how I am on the court. So what Joe says, Jovan Green. Yeah. Kind of Draymond-ish. Justine Severo says Jovan, world peace. Yeah. Barry, did trading Max hurt our backcourt? Like yes and no. Like, I mean, they got Luka, so I think it's a clear net positive in the backcourt. But in general, I don't think they have another Max Christie type, and I think he would have been their third best guard behind Luka and Austin. So, like going from what Max could have done for this group to like more Gabe or more Dalton or even DFS was playing some 2 tonight. Like. Like yes and no, right? Like again, Luka improves the backcourt, but I think if there was any way to keep Max, like that would have been ideal. Drew says, would Draymond have been tossed for doing what Austin did to the ref? Sensitive call, in my opinion. Honestly, no, he probably wouldn't have been. He probably would have got the first tech, and then that would have been it. The second Draymond gets a tech, he could like go punch the ref, and I don't know if he'd get ejected. Like it's a high bar for Draymond to get ejected. IS says, all right, the Pat Beverly comparisons are taking it too far. I won't accept that one. IS, Jovan, who's the guy you would want to pair Luka up with for the next decade? No Wemby. I mean, Jokic, if there's a way to convince him to leave Denver, team up with his fellow Balkan, half Serbian, and Luka. Otherwise, I mean, ideally it would be a big or a way like Tatum, Ant. Otherwise, young bigs, like there aren't many that jump off. I mean, like I like Şengün. I don't think there's enough defense there with that pairing. Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't think is quite at the level you'd want for like a true number 2 star. I think he's more of a number 3, ideally. Like he's had a great season, so I don't want to disparage him, but I think or more of a number 3 option overall offensively, I would say. I don't know. That's a tough one. Let me know what you guys think in the chat. L.A. says, sorry, I missed the meetup. Sounds like it went well. Midterms are a bleep. Well, I hope you did well with your midterms. And again, there will be another one. Puppy Chow 302 says Luka at AD. Sure. I mean, that would have been nice. Jake from State Farm says Luka and Cooper flag. Okay, well, this is what Logan says. Giannis. I guess I somehow forgot about Giannis. Yeah, Giannis would be. I guess overall Giannis would be the guy because he like I would probably go Wemby, Giannis, Jokic, and it's though I would rank them in terms of like current order the opposite. I'd go Jokic, Giannis, Wemby, but Wemby long term has top 10 potential of all time. Giannis, the reason I go Giannis over Jokic is just because I think there's less overlap with Luka offensively. And then also defensively, Giannis is at clearly several levels higher than Jokic. And so it pains me as a Serbian to pick Giannis, but that I would those would be my top 3 in that order. Then we could throw a Cooper flag in there to make some people get happy. Yes, AR was ejected. Kurt Affair says Luka and Devin Booker. I like that as well. And okay, I think there's a couple of super chats that I missed. I apologize. Braden says that was a gut punch loss. It's just a bit of growing pains. Not too worried. It's time for JJ to do what you said. Start DFS. We appreciate you, Brate. Sorry I missed your super chat earlier. Agreed on all fronts. Gut punch loss. Growing pains. Not worried. JJ should start DFS. I appreciate you. Well, Justin, I already got to him. Okay, so sorry. I guess I missed Braden. And then now Keon Park. I'll end here because I've already gone over a bit and I do need to try and get some sleep. But Keon Park says, do you still think Luka and AR can still play together, both starters? Yes, I do. I don't think now I would say actually the part of the game I'm more concerned with is probably late game and how that looks. But it's been 3 games, 2 against Utah, 1 against Charlotte. I would like to see at least 10 games before we draw any conclusion or any serious conclusions with Luka and AR and how that works and whatnot. Again, adjustment. Austin, I think it's the biggest adjustment for just because of how much he had the ball and how much it's now going to Luka, and LeBron is kind of basically still been LeBron, and Austin's kind of been the guy who's had to play more off the ball and adjust a little bit more. So I would like to see 7, 9, 10 games with those two before I really give you a better answer. But until then, I'm going to say yes. Now, I think there could be some late game scenarios in which if it's a team like Boston that can really target you, or an OKC or something, I think you might have to play the matchups a little bit more and make some tough decisions and lean into a more defensive lineup. And that's where maybe you split up that pairing, and I assume it would be Austin going to the bench in that case, and maybe you're going bigger with DFS or you're going with Gabe or something. But as a starter, I think Austin should be starting. I think he should be playing mid 30s plus minutes. And again, I can already hear or see some people say kind of, comparing it to Austin and Rui. But I just think, to me, DFS, I think DFS is a better player for winning a championship than Rui. And I think that's but I think you could, it's a pretty close argument. I think like Austin compared to Gabe, for example, like sure, Gabe's better defensively, but I just think there's a wide gap in talent, in production, in what they bring to a lineup. Austin's been a plus minus darling for this group for months now. I would not bench that guy. So I think give it 10 games and then we could reassess. But in looking at like who to bench in the starting group, I still think it starts with Rui. I think you've got a guy who's, in my opinion, better, but I think you could argue just as good or maybe a little bit worse in DFS. Similar player or production and value. That to me is the swap. Go more defense there, and then if that doesn't work, then you reassess. But I still think that this group works together. But with all that said, I'm going to wrap here. I will be back tomorrow or tonight. It's 12:21 currently a.m. Pacific time. So I'll be back in less than 24 hours with another post-game reaction after the Lakers-Blazers game. I'm traveling to Portland in the morning. I also have another episode of Buha's Block coming out tomorrow. I interviewed Jake Rogal, who is the director of Court of Gold, which is the new Netflix docuseries that just came out on the Olympics. It followed the U.S. team, Serbia, France, and Canada through the training camp into the qualifiers in group play, and then into the medal rounds, single elimination, and 3 of the 4 teams ended up medaling. So you had obviously US, France, and Serbia, and some really cool behind the scenes access. I recommend everybody check it out, but also check out our interview. It's it's like 20 minutes long, but we go through, we talk about LeBron, but we also talk about Ant steals the show in the documentary, but we talk about Serbia, and we talk about just how they went through the footage and determined what to use and what not to use. We talk about KD and that viral moment of KD crying and talking about how much basketball means to him. So try to encompass a lot of more general NBA stuff with the documentary, but that interview will be out tomorrow at some point. And I appreciate you all for watching. Shout out to the Late Night Gang. But again, that will do it for tonight's show. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back again in like 23 hours after Lakers Blazers. I will talk to you then.